Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of appreciation to Abraham Mohammed, Adam, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Billy Highvolt, Blue Ridge Ranger, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Chow Yun Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Wayne Foster, Daz Studio 68, Edwin Johnson, Erwin Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, God Rockin, Henrik 86, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Matt, Missouri Bear, Nagara, Nathan Thompson, Naibai, Guitar Craig, Rene, Rob H, Sally Ballis, Silver Umbrella, Skeptic 936, Texas Mike, The Real Gabster, Tina Baker, Tom Herkins, UK Diamond 33, Unbelievable Productions, latest Patreon, thank you very much for joining me, Unbelievable Productions, and Windrider. So a massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now, we are joined by a fair few people in both Discord and G Plus panels, so I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for the first live show.
Yeah, the English one.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Not much. Just a regular old mainstream kind of thing, I guess.
Weren't you taken back a little bit of the comedic ending? Well, we should spend that money on something else. Usually it's the flat earthers saying that money that goes to NASA every day should be spent on something worthwhile. And now it's the host of the show saying it.
You talking about Philip Schofield?
Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah, did you see the look in Mark's eye when he got that response? Because obviously he dealt with it professionally, but he wasn't exactly expecting him to be quite pessimistic and challenging, and then to round out the interview say, yeah, we shouldn't be faking space, we should spend it all on healthcare.
That was priceless, man.
Hey guys.
Right. Hey, Flatzoid. You've been busy.
Hey, Flatsoid.
Huh?
I don't think he heard you,
Flatzoid.
10th man. He said, you've been busy, Flatsoid. I don't know why he would say that to you, but
Sorry?
that's what he said.
Come on, Fletcher. You get on. You sound like you're chipper, and then your mic breaks for about 2 minutes every time.
Sorry, don't worry. Looks like we'll be moving soon. I'll get better reception.
All right. Did you get your job then?
Yeah, it's like 4 hours away from here, but after my work my month's notice, then I can go.
Well, I'm happy for you. That's great.
So you're up in sticks, you're completely moving.
Well,
That's
heck,
right,
just
mate.
for the reception. Just for
right,
the
mate.
reception, you ought to move.
At least I'll afford a new mic as well.
Are you moving?
Yes.
Are you completely moving to a different place, moving house?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, those southern.
It's like 4 hours away from here. But the nice thing is the new package is at least good. Get a house, and I get 4 times the salary I get here.
Cool. Good for you.
That's awesome.
So I can open a studio. Yay!
So I hear you're off on the tangent. Fill us in.
Which one?
I just love the way you post these conversations you're having with ballers. I mean, go ahead, post us in. Give us the play-by-play.
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to call them dumb anymore.
Just call them ballers.
Why can't you call them dumb?
What's righteous?
Because of righteous.
This is getting interesting.
Well, it makes moderating the Discord easier if people. What was it that you said, Nathan? I don't approve of the language because it descends the argument and the farce. So when people start calling each other idiots and so on, just makes it a mess and so on.
Yeah, it depends.
So
on
I can't
depends on
say
the
dingbat
context.
anymore or knucklehead.
Well, I'm just talking about Betty server
Fair enough.
when not relation to the show. Like you guys are your own thing.
No, I get it. From a server operator point of view, I can totally understand it. Plus, most people who are saying things like that haven't necessarily demonstrated the person to be stupid with an example that destroys their argument prior to calling them stupid.
Yeah, I'll try in future not to call someone dumb, even though they are though.
So now that we're off of that tangent, can we get back on the original tangent question?
What question?
Oh,
He wants you
God.
to talk about
Come
the
on,
physicality
Flashlight.
and the tangent they don't have, because you're on a tangent vibe in terms of describing how they've got to have the physical sphere geometry to draw a tangent line in the first place, and that would require physicality to the horizon to draw that tangent line. I've just made your point for you. Bloody hell.
Sorry, I can't really hear properly.
All you need to add is yes. That's all. Your job would be a good one if you just said yeah.
Okay, yes.
Excellent,
Thank you,
excellent.
Flashlight.
Thank
That
you.
was very good. I can't wait till you're 4 hours away to your new location so we can see how the new mic and the better service works for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna build my own studio, have a proper mic.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant like painting studio.
Oh, I'm actually doing a lot of music lately, so I want a studio.
Ah, so not work related. Okay, I misunderstood what you meant. I was like, okay, so he's building himself. He's going to be doing his work from home and more specialised. Maybe that was what went through my mind when you're like, I'm going to build a studio at home. It's like, oh, okay, he's going to be doing his thing, and he's, that's why he's going to move. But I've obviously got the wrong idea about what's going on. You're talking about where you're going to move into for your home life and nothing to do with work, although it is directly connected to work. So it's a bit confusing.
No, I'm definitely moving for work though.
No, I got that.
No,
My
Nathan.
new house though.
I think the music
can
he's
afford it.
referencing. I think the music Flashlight's referencing is his own work on his own time, because he's in the. Remember, he had the compressors and paint and everything. He's in that kind of line of work for money.
No, I get all that now. That's all clear now.
Yeah, spray painting.
Good morning,
Maybe you
all.
could. Hey, Paul.
Go ahead, Terrence. I was saying good morning.
No, I was just saying good morning back to you. You've been busy with the new arrival, and it's good to hear your voice every now and then.
Yeah, pretty much. And of course, the cold just ravaged our home the last few weeks, so we've all been fighting a cold.
I've got it here myself, and I said I'll just stay home, won't do anything, and I sat on this couch that's not really that great, I guess, because now my whole back is thrown out because I sat on it all weekend. I got a new problem.
You know, I've been seeing over the weekend that's filled my heart with joy, only to literally within the last couple of hours have Mitchell from Australia back precisely that in just the most concise way I could ever wish for. So over the weekend, I've been spotting in various live chats the people who get the argument. Just by the way they talk, there's a subtle difference to somebody who understands this modus tollens formulation and someone who doesn't. And the people who do just phrase their questions in subtly different ways that lets me know they fully get the argument. Now, Red Pill Philosophy and Mitchell from Australia on Ball on the Plains podcast, Dome Life, talked about precisely that. And the way I think Mitchell from Australia titled his video was even to say, look, Red Pill Philosophy gets this argument, do you? With a question mark. That was his title. And I'm kind of echoing those sentiments, the sentiments of his title, although it's just a discussion about the modus tollens formulation and how the Black Swan came to be. Obviously, both parties understand the argument, that much is clear from their discussion. But ultimately speaking, I mirrored it because it's like, I've seen people in the chats, not necessarily talking about it on a live show, that was just an added bonus. But I've seen people in the chats. I'll give you a specific example because that again happened today. So Stiggy in the chat was holding Nick to task about the horizon. And it got to the point in the conversation where Nick's saying stuff's being refracted around it at 1.5 miles. And Stiggy was there going, refracted around what? Around what? Around the refracted horizon? And he's like full on pummeling it. You can hear his tone from the text chat, right? You're like, yeah, go Stiggy, go. Clearly he gets it. You can just tell by the way he's phrasing his question. You know, he's not overtly stating, I know this modus tollens argument. And people don't need to. You can just tell. And it's so heartwarming because you're like, yeah, man, you're now pummeling him. Like, properly giving him a hard time with this. And you know it and he knows it. And it's just epic. So, yeah, shout out to all the people who are cottoning on to just how devastating this argument. And the rebuttals are essentially a relinquishment of the globe geometry. That's their rebuttal. And people have clocked it and gone, hey, I like that. Their only rebuttal is to basically decry their own religion. Awesome.
Yeah, I was telling Righteous this morning how Mitchell nailed it with Red Pill so succinctly, as you said, and I've already listened to it twice. It was that well put.
It's just a very casual, like all of these conversations. I've said this before as well. Everyone seems a lot more relaxed. So both Mitchell and Red Pill are very chilled out about talking about the fact, yeah, in a few years, they'll be sat down arguing with us and we'll all suddenly realise we're all arguing the same argument. You know, we're all basically flat earthers, but they still in the back of their mind have a sphere belief. And you're like, yeah, man, exactly. That's how it's going now. Them telling us all about how we need to account for perspective. You're just like, you couldn't make it up. The way the argument's gone is just truly great. I mean, I've got to be honest, I'm picturing quite a quiet week this week. I don't know about you guys. I think it'll be particularly quiet. I don't know if you agree. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
Your last statement is very poignant, that we're all flat earthers. Everything that can be observed and is observed is done over the same flat plane. Then they have to reify it into a sphere with some funny mathematics. So, yeah, we are all flat earthers at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're flat earthers and they don't even know it. The fact that they're arguing with our points, which they were literally laughing at only a matter of months ago. Perspective? It's just an excuse for why you say the geometric horizon's getting in the way. And only they could trust, right? It was the only assertion. Sphere Earth geometry was the only cause of anything ever. Because that's all it's got in the calculation, just the geometry. And refraction based on geometry and physicality. That's all it's got. So they just had to laugh at us when we said, no, you've got to account for perspective. That's how we observe the world, and your view is side on. It doesn't account for perspective. Now they're telling us, it's everything apparent. It's all about the apparent nature. It's about the apparent size. It's about perspective. You're like, what? None of that's in your calculator. That's our argument. What are you talking about? Oh, you've just basically conceded your own argument without appreciating it. Yeah, welcome to Flat Earth.
Well, their high priests know that everything's over a flat Earth. Righteous. I put a link in Masterbeat titled Refraction. Can you click the link and or Paul or somebody and scroll through that page from Andrew Thomas Young again, please?
You there, Righteous? He might have nipped away.
Maybe Paul could
Oh no, Paul's
click
got
on
it.
it. Oh, there it is. There it is. All right. So here's slow down. Go back to the title, please. Okay, refraction. For thousands of years, people have noticed that a straight stick placed obliquely in water appears to be broken at an angle where it enters the water. This is the origin of the term refraction, which means literally broken back. Kind of like what I'm suffering right now from sitting on that bed couch. Anyway, back to this. So this is going to focus on what refraction is and where they get it. And for about 2,000 years, astronomers have known that heavenly bodies seen near the horizon, okay, that's lower to your angle, right, near the horizon, appear slightly higher in the sky than they really are. This was attributed to refraction by the Earth's atmosphere, but it was not understood in detail until a couple of hundred years ago. This astronomical refraction, in its more extreme forms, is the cause of green flashes. And it goes on to say, refraction in the atmosphere is complicated, the continuous change in density of the air. So let's begin by considering refraction a light at a plane boundary between two uniform media, say air or water, or air and glass. For the moment, we will ignore the variations of density in the air. Oh, how convenient. In the diagrams below, heavy lines represent rays of light. If you are not familiar with this conceptual fiction, please check Optics for Beginners page before continuing here. So basically, if you haven't got it already, the word plane boundary was used. Astronomical refraction is what's at the lower side of the horizon. And then a subtle move to say it had nothing to do with density. It's something a little bit more complicated. So scroll down and you can see a couple of examples of air and water and air and glass, much like the straw in the glass, and it looks a little bit weird when you look at it straight and crooked, and or a boat oar in the water looks crooked. Anyway, go on, keep scrolling real slow. How much? The law of refraction. You keep scrolling, please. Just keep scrolling without me having to say it, but just at the speed you're doing. And you can see the titles, funny business near grazing incidents. Okay, so the grazing incidents, now in these charts, you can see they put a curve to it. So keep going. That's the angle in water, the first one. The second one, we'll see a little curve in the chart for the angle in the air. And stop right here. Then you got all of these mathematical problems. I must tell you, this isn't my cup of tea, and I ran it by somebody else already. So cosines and all these things, someone a little bit more math-oriented will have to come in here. But basically, these are the calculations that Dr. Andrew Thomas Young is using to prove refraction. But keep going now. And here's the calculations. Okay, stop right there. Summary. Calculating atmospheric refraction. Here it is, ballers. Own up. All the discussion above deals with plane surfaces. Oops, there's that word plane again. But the Earth isn't flat. Hey, hang on. All the discussions above, all the observations above, I'm being sarcastic here now, Nathan. Everything Andrew Thomas Young just told us have to do with plane surfaces. Plane surfaces. So all of your testing, all of your math, all that happened on the flat Earth, and then you say, but the Earth isn't flat? To deal with refraction in a curved atmosphere, we have to introduce some wizardry. Oh, I'm sorry, geometrical considerations, which have been put on a separate page. Now, we can click each one of these, and I did. So don't do it yet, but you can hit separate page, and then you can go to the next line where it says, likewise, the atmosphere doesn't contain separate layers of different refractive indexes. the ray bending produced by continuous distribution of density is discussed on another page. I've done that. And then the third one, if you're not interested in the details of the calculation, but still want to know more about refraction of astronomical objects by the atmosphere, see the page on astronomical refraction. Copyright 2002, 2012, 2020, Andrew T. Young. Now, astronomical, let's see, those are the luminaries above us in outer space, the supposed medium, and the celestial sphere. Oh, well, that's also imaginary. So there's no such thing as a celestial sphere, but they make it up, and they even say it's imaginary. But Nathan, every time Brenda or anyone comes on to talk about refraction, we need to point them out that all the actual hands-on testing of any type was done over a plane surface, and then because of the Earth isn't flat, the begging the question, it's got to be a sphere, let's do some wizardry to curve it.
Yeah, and then they'll ignore every demonstration that's been done on your presentation now and substitute in any of these actual effects of refraction with terrestrial refraction. Now, they've already told you that the geometric considerations will be taken into factor a non-physical horizon into geometric certitude. But when doing so, they'll take the certitude from the thought experiment and bend light around it with the assumption of the physical certitude R would give them, and they do not have. So it's a whole begging the question, circular reasoning, round and round it goes, self-referencing, whatever you want to call it. But ultimately speaking, it all depends on them having that physicality which they do not have any longer.
Yes, and I'll give it up for good and let everyone else talk about it. I do want to give a summary to it all. If the only observations one could have of anything that they're looking into is limited on a plane surface, i.e. flat Earth, then you have all those observations and optical situations happening over a flat Earth. You have no right to reify it to something that isn't real. Go ahead, Paul.
One of the things I ask the Glovers too, if the medium is relatively the same, like in water or air in general, would the light curve? And obviously their first words out of their mouth would be yes, but I'm going like, you'd have to have a density change for the light to start curving. But if you're over the surface of the water and the relative density of the air is relatively the same, the light should move in a straight path, right? Am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, it deviates from straight. You hear that?
Deviate. Just define what deviate means. To deviate from straight. What does that mean? Does that mean curving? That means going straight.
I'll show you.
What does it mean?
Scroll up to one of those diagrams at the top where you've got all the different, not the graphs, but the actual graphical depictions. It's close to the top. There you go. Any of these. Right. So what you've got in air and water is a straight line. Then it deviates and carries on in a straight line. So it's deviating from straight. In other words, a straight line. Just scroll down because I think the next one actually shows my point. There you go. So between S and A would be a straight line. Between S and then R at the position where it deviates from straight, it then moves on to C, having moved again in a straight line from R to C. So it's deviating from straight. The point being, it's always travelling in a straight line, and the term refraction by definition means it's deviating from its straight path. That is what being refracted is.
But if it's in the same medium, if the medium doesn't change, it'll continue in the straight path till it hits a different medium, right? And
well, all of these have
again.
all of these have got transitional points, i.e. between two different mediums. So yeah, the effect when you're just moving through air in terms of the deviation from straight is negligible.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Chocolate Saiyan, Paul Hall, 10th Man, Adam Meakin, who else we got in there? Flatzoid and Righteous Force, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, hello, hello. Any evidence of a physical geometric Earth curve edge?
Black Swan.
What?
Any signs of Earth curvature at all?
Not from Banning.
Any
Not
signs
from
of
Earth.
Any signs of axial rotation?
First,
Now
need the
that's
actual
based.
curve to have axial rotation.
Yeah, gotta have an axis. We haven't got one of them either. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No evidence, Nathan.
Only assumptions.
I've heard much from Discord. Anybody in Discord? Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Or a curve or axis or anything.
Tumbleweed. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No science, no gravity.
Right, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Seat of the pants.
You had a feedback yet, Dan? Have you had a response?
No, Adam.
Nothing from Dr. Becky, so she was the
No.
best hope for that, won't she?
Yeah, I mean, got a big YouTube channel, likes to answer all questions except the ones I'm posting, which is very civil, actually. And
wonder
haven't
why.
heard nothing since 2019.
I wonder why, Ken.
Well, maybe because I'm asking for cowbell.
Cowbell
You're
being
actually
scientific
asking-
evidence.
You're actually asking something that will validate their position.
Yeah,
You're not even asking for scientific evidence. You're asking for evidence of science. You're getting
Yeah, that's
done.
true. Right on.
yeah, very good, Chuck.
And any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Maybe that's a straw man too, because maybe the Globies don't believe in that anymore since they don't really fight for it. So maybe that's a straw man too, because they don't believe it. Even though their model clearly has one posted right in the middle of their beautiful cartoon. I don't know.
Hello.
Hello, Armin.
I saw the movie The Core.
What's up,
Yeah,
Paul?
Go ahead, whoever was in Discord.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying I saw the movie The Core.
Yeah, we've had that before. That doesn't count. About the R value.
Didn't even count as a good movie. It was horrible.
About
Not
evidence?
a good movie,
The CGI was
Chocolate?
just a rubbish. The CGI
No.
was rubbish.
Oh, go on, let's discuss the core.
Nah,
Go ahead.
the core was garbage.
Dude, those crystals were amazing. It was good enough too.
You're not talking about your meth addict problem.
I want an amethyst as big as the car, you know?
Any
Can't
evidence?
disagree with you there.
Any evidence of the R value? Moving on, the R value, Earth radius.
Would that be
The
product
same
geodesics?
radius that got destroyed by the Black Swan? That radius?
Same, yeah.
Nah.
Is that the one that you calculate by the drop in an apparent position?
What you're talking about, the horizon dip value measurement that they claim?
Yeah,
you could,
Well, where'd you get this all from? Because we used to get it from optical measurements. That was the assumption. But if now nothing's real and where it was, it's all refracted, then
Yeah, that
what
was
is
back
this
in the
all
day.
coming from?
But then how do they get a tangent?
they don't. Not only do they not have R, they don't have their refraction based on R either. So when they say refraction, that started with the R value they don't have. They just don't realise it yet.
Whoopsie.
To find the actual proof for R, first you have to engage in a thought experiment.
Cue the wibbly wobbly lines on the screen and the harp. And now we're in space. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
Are we working at the really is level?
Well, the harp music's
Always.
just played, and I haven't got
Okay,
a
now.
wibbly wobbly filter to make it look like we're going back in time / to somewhere that isn't real.
Diddle-diddle-diddle-diddle-diddle.
And we're back in the
I
room.
do I like the space sound effects.
And now we're back in the room. We're in reality. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
That'd be daft, Nathan.
Nope.
In reality, no.
Well, that concludes the housekeeping. I was saying in the pre-show before we started, we had a full-on presentation from 10th Man on this very specific document that I was hoping he'd present, and I can trim out, and I will publish that separately, 10th Man, on this channel. So if you're watching live, obviously you didn't get to see the pre-show. There's a link below. It'll come out later on, maybe 3 or 4 hours after the live show. I published the Uncut and After show, just the whole lot recorded without any edits. Anyway, I'll trim that out and publish it separately, so you don't have to go through it again, 10th Man. But it was a really, you did it well. You gave it was good. So yeah, either check that out later on this evening. But what I was going to say was, I was quite heartwarmed to see Mitchell from Australia and Red Pill Philosophy discussing, in a very relaxed manner, their ease in which this argument is self-defeating if any rebuttal is ever offered. So, in other words, the offering of a rebuttal leaves you in a position where you relinquish your own geometry. And the people who get it, to me, it's only a subtle hinter, but I can tell almost straight away if somebody gets this argument by the way they're phrasing some of their questions. And the example I gave was a guy called Stiggy, who was in the chat for the Mitchell and Red Pill video that I chunked out, and thanked everyone for subscribing and stuff, and thanked Mark Sargent, various other things. But the point being that is heartwarming to see in the comments, especially when people are in the live chats and they've clearly got a really good grasp of the argument. A bit like Spurs, but Spurs was actually, doing it live. You can just tell who gets it. You don't have to ask them to rephrase the argument back to you when they get it. They're asking, what's it being loomed over again? So it's not real then if it's loomed and things like that. They don't necessarily, like I say, have to overtly state that they get the argument. You can just tell.
Yeah, the back and forth with Mitchell and Red Pill, really, without saying checkmate, they said checkmate every time they talked about it.
So really what the Globers have to say is the boats go over a refracted horizon. That's what they have to say now, right? The only option they got.
Well, they have no
Non-sequitur.
choice now, since we've never seen the geometric horizon, which is also what they say now. So I guess that horizon we're looking at is always refracted.
Weird. Even if you have to work out the refraction, I think 20% is the maximum refraction you can get in reality, and it's not even close to what they need.
Well, maybe if the horizon can technically loom above the horizon, maybe it's just the bending of space-time that just bent it into this flat thing visually. How about that?
Because it went through the donut's hole.
Yes. Sorry, just maybe too much. But
All right. When we're talking about the geometric horizon, we're talking about Narnia anyway. So
Right. So yeah, as I said yesterday, was it maybe the geometric curve can still be found in pseudo-Riemannian four space somewhere, if they look really carefully.
Oh, cue the violins and wibbly wobbly music again.
No, I liked it. What Arvin just did was just smack him with some fiction, their own fiction. Good job there, Arvin.
Thanks. Oh, talking about fiction, did anybody see that pretty long video that I posted? It was a BBC production. My God, that was like the most social engineered, high-tech sponsored YouTube thing that I've ever seen. Anybody look at that? I looked through all of it because it was just so mind-boggling thick.
Just assume we haven't and tell us. Just fill us in. Give us the broad strokes.
Okay. Well, it was a show that was like about math addicts, people that were really into math and science. Yes, you can already feel it coming. So everything, they brought up technology, they brought up conceptual approaches and statistical averages. It was kind of like a school thing on YouTube for pretty relatively smart kids, but just the engineering and the social elements that were interjected in there, supposedly hidden, everybody of us can see that. It was so thick on top that it strangled me sometimes, but it was fascinating to see it. And yeah, a lot of bright colors, everybody was always smiling and everything, and oof.
Did you say it was math addicts?
Math with an A.
Yeah, math addicts.
Yeah, I think that the show was even called that. Let me check back. I did post a link of it.
Well, if it's math addicts, I wouldn't trust it because in that community, there's quite a division.
Yeah.
No, the problems.
It's from the channel of the Royal Institution. Oh, the video has 666 upvotes for some reason. That's odd. Yeah, it's Christmas Lectures 2019. It was posted 17th February from the Royal Institution. That's the channel name.
Yeah, I grew up on them, Owen. Back in back in the days when I was sort of 13, 14, Christmas lectures were one of the things that as math addicts used to really look forward to. I used to love the Christmas lectures. They were stuff that was done at level for kids, and
right. Well,
amazing stuff.
Extremely impressive. So I watched through the whole thing. They even did really impressive camera shots. It's like every department that was involved was trying to show off their skills in some way. Serious. Just look at the thing.
As we're in the, I keep saying violins, I meant to say harp, but as we're in the back in the day bit, this might ring a bell for Adam, as you're a Brit. So when I was a very young kid, I've always been an insomniac. My eldest kid is also an insomniac, which is a proper pain in the ass. Anyway, back when I was a kid, I used to be up all night, not sleeping. And one of the things that they'd have out on TV for people to record with their 1980s VHS recorders was the Open University. And they just put it out at a time that there was nothing else obviously being aired, very low, people watching TV at 2-3 in the morning. And like I say, the idea was that you recorded it and then you watched it back later for your Open University course. But essentially, it meant that you got free education. If you were up that late, I didn't have a video recorder, but I'd just watch them all live. So you like free education from the Open University if you were prepared to stay up late enough. Did you ever use it?
I remember many a night like that, mate. There was at uni as well. It was still only 4 channels back then, weren't they? It was right. What we'd do, we'd be watching Time Teas, and there'd be sod all TV. So I remember the standard routine would be watch about an hour and a half of the Mahabharat reruns, and then that'd finish, and then you'd be over onto the Open University, and there was tons of stuff in there. I remember my actual dissertation that I did was on it was on lavender oils, essential oils, and use of those in replacement of pharmaceuticals. And I actually got my dissertation idea from an Open University thing that we sat there. Late one evening, it came up, and it was using it on medical wards and this to calm patients. So yeah, I mean, it used to be amazing. You can see why it was free education and very high level. It was degree standard, wasn't it? It was designed for.
I had no idea. I didn't know what at the age I was watching it. Number one, I didn't know what a university was, and I certainly had no idea that it was at any particular level. It was just something that was on TV for a kid that wasn't sleeping. So I'd just watch it and soak it all up because I thought it was fascinating, not for any other reason or because I was doing a course. Literally just because you're a little bit older than I am, so you can imagine you're probably doing your university course while I'm a kid up in his shorts.
Yeah. Great jumpers, as I remember from all those things. Home knits, some rather.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Very, very 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, mate, it was very interesting that's no longer there. That was part of the free access that the BBC used to provide as well. It was part of the license fee, wasn't it? It was all that spare airtime was used to give real high quality information that was degree unbiased education. It wasn't mainstream narrative. It was literally straight out of the lecture halls of what was being currently taught. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Open University not just by name only. It was precisely what it said on the tin.
It's not like Brian Cox coming on now. It was,
Well, it was a lot.
It
more
wasn't
dry.
designed as entertainment. It was designed as actually there as part of your degree course. But
I was going to say it's far more dry. There was no edits and transitions. There was just men in knitted jumpers, and it wasn't what you consider whatever they call the sky at night. It was more like that than it would be a Brian Cox presentation.
Yeah.
I've got somebody presenting something that's going to get me a copyright strike probably.
It's just the fragment of the show. Look at the freaking thing that they just put in there. It's just a giant checkerboard with a double staircase.
That's the Royal Institute, mate.
I can't put it on screen. I'll get a copyright strike. If you can pause it and scrub through it, I'll put it up. But don't play it.
Just the one picture. I didn't have any volume up or anything. Never mind.
No,
I just wanted to show.
It's the moving images. As long as you scrub through it, don't play. Just scrub.
Okay.
And then comment. I don't want to get a copyright strike.
Right. Well, it is.
Is that a shadow?
It's a giant checkerboard up to a staircase with two statues beside it. Look at the paintings of it looks all pretty incredible and very heavily influenced by Freemasonry. But that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, since it is the Royal Institute after all, as you said. But they did show it off, like in the middle of the show. They did a walkthrough in order to demonstrate the technology and stability of drones, which they also advertised in this, among other things, like AI robots and all kinds of stuff. This hour is chock full of technological updates, as it were. So yeah, I thought it was very condensed, intense to watch, full of propaganda too, but still interesting
stuff.
Is that the one they started with flipping the bike in the studio?
Say again, Chocolate?
Arwen?
Yes.
Is that the one where they...
Yes. With the intro stunt. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they got something for everyone to like in there.
Yeah, I didn't watch all of it because I was just like, I don't know what this is about. The guy flipped the bike in the studio, okay? But
yeah. Let me see if I can find the moment. There you go.
Oh, you're not sharing anymore though.
Oh wait, yeah, that's right.
Well, while you're sharing, quick shout out to Steve ALM.
I still just see the green pants.
Hold on one sec. Hold on. Quick shout out to Steve ALM, my latest channel member, who's joined as a lion. So big shout out to you, Steve ALM. Thank you very much for joining. Right, Arwen, do you want me to put it on?
Well, you want to see it?
Scrub, don't play.
Oh yeah, but it's a stunt. He basically enters on a
It's not that serious, Robin.
I don't care what it is. Don't play it. Just scrub.
Right, metronomes.
Can I just ask a question?
Never mind. It's just let's move on.
Or just scrub through it.
Can I just ask a question?
Hold on. Don't tease the audience, Arwin. Just scrub through it.
But I can't find the moment where he's actually midair. Oh wait, here it is. I think. There. Hello.
While you're doing that, I'll just explain why I'm so fussy about it. Right. The team that's put these images together as a video have produced it. They've spent money. They've paid people to be there, film it, light it. It's their work. It's not my work. Now, while we're making a point using it, just playing out him doing this stunt is unreasonable because suddenly it becomes my video and it isn't my video. Now, a lot of people don't get this about YouTube. They're like, yeah, but it's fair use. It's like, no. Try not to think of it in those terms. Unless it's absolutely necessary to play a piece. This isn't absolutely necessary. It's just a stunt you want to play.
I can't show it without playing it.
Yeah, I saw you make the effort. Fair enough, Arwin. You can give up at that point. You've tried hard enough. Go and see it if you want to see it. You saw the name on the screen. I'm not going to post a link to BBC.
Well, to me, what stood out the most to the video is just the overall intense effort they put into every conceivable aspect of what is going on in the show, in the video, in the looks, in the dresses, in how everybody's attitude is. It's all so perfected. And that's really what caught my attention throughout the whole thing, because it does have some typical repulsive, statist programming in there as well. And the social justice warrior idea and all that is still in there. But despite all of that, it was still just so condensed that it was pretty much worth watching the entire hour. So.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's with the damn green pants?
Yeah. You caught that one, did you?
Green pants.
That's a 70s throwback.
You have to fill me in. I'm colorblind. What is this?
Green pants, red hair.
Yep. Black sweater.
Matches your icon, Blastoid.
Okay. Sorry, have we all just turned into women?
Yeah.
What?
Who gives a shit about their outfit and the color scheme?
Matters a lot. Fashion is very important to women.
Sorry. Quick, somebody play a harp.
Just kidding. No. But that did stand out to me. But hey, like the color was even like a thing in here as well. Because they were giving somebody a red mask and then like find the yellow balloon among the orange ones and then go by hints of the public. And it was like a social experiment that they did.
No, I've seen this bit. I've seen this clip used before. It's in terms of medical diagnosis, isn't it? In terms of predictions, making predictions with limited information.
Right. Yeah, you're correct.
Right, statistical.
So you've got to guess where the balloon is. So you pop the balloon first, you have a guess where the yellow balloon is, and then she's no idea. Now the next guess, all she's allowed to be told is it above, below, left or right? So it's just showing how with limited information, you can draw more accurate conclusions. And within 2 or 3 guesses, she actually gets the right balloon. So.
Yeah, within 2. Then it explodes in a ball of fire. Anyway, enough.
It's kind of excusing, I think, in a way to how modern medicine is not necessarily, is more probability based than diagnosis rather than a definition of direct causality. So I think that was an analogy for that. We can get the right thing and fix the right thing even if we don't specifically know.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to interrupt you for. Yeah, but you're right. That's exactly what I wanted to say. To give trust in, the system's got mechanisms to get things right, even if not everything is known.
This is where Adam needs a lot of props because I hope you don't mind me speaking for you when you're here, Adam. But on your journey, you've had a conflict. In other words, when we were at the stage that we were talking about science, what it does and doesn't prove, and the validity that it does or doesn't offer when the assertion is made of science, you were very much in a position where, well, lots of things I deal with are claimed to be science when they're actually a statistical analysis or a group study. And therefore you were left in what I would call an awkward position, but you battled through it.
We're funny like that because we're multidisciplined pharmacists. We're not doctors, so we're not got a head in that, and we're physicists as well. We're formulation scientists, and certainly when you then get into medicines, efficacy of drugs, it's made quite clear to us as pharmacists. This is no longer the science. We're now in probabilities, studies, because drugs don't work the same in everyone. You know, it's not just a cause and effect relationship. There is science in there in terms of the direct pharmacology, but when we're talking about medicine per se, I wouldn't put it in to direct everything we do being cause and effect and therefore science. A lot of it is, as they're demonstrating there, probability based, very educated, but still probability based. And so I suppose when given that question, Nate, it was probably easier for me in my discipline to separate the two, because professionally we are having to do that and recognize the limitations of what certain things provide and what other things don't. But even so, it's still tough. There's certain bits that you actually go that you do held to, that you do actually have to go, hold up, if I am being intellectually honest with myself here and really appraising my profession, bloody hell, there's huge parts of it that sit well outside of that remit that I would have happily have used the term science in it, and it does require a re-evaluation.
Yeah, same applies to Dr. John Dee. So, you know, he was, I don't want to say arguing with me, but, you know, kind of a tacit agreement would be reached and then a complete contradiction would follow for the first, you know, email exchange between he and I, while I was literally only just getting to grips with the whole contradiction in terms of scientific assertions that are made in the mainstream with bullshit and heliocentrism. The list goes on. But the same thing applies, and, you know, the other side is a much greener pasture, though.
I mean, props to QE. That was before I met him, but seeing some of his old school stuff, it was him that kind of firmed that up in terms of making me address it and look at it. So by the time you were talking to John Dee and we'd had a chat in the back, I was pretty cool on being critical of my previous assumptions, or what I would call you know what I mean, and being critical of myself. I'd kind of come to terms with what was and what wasn't, and I think it is very difficult. If you, like you say, if you talk about Dr. Becky, a whole field, it's very difficult to look at that and then come to the conclusion that none of it is science. Do you know what I mean? It is a tough decision, but like with John, I mean, you kept plugging away and talking with him, and eventually you keep going through it. You do, if you're honest about what the definition is and you apply it as the scientist you claim you are, you're only left with certain conclusions, which is to rejudge everything via the correct statement of the scientific method.
The weird thing with Dr. John Dee was that he instantly recognised the point I made and immediately agreed. So, but then he had the battle that we've just described. I won't rehash it with him not here, it's unfair. But ultimately speaking, you know, I'm sure you've described it before in terms of the way I can't really go through this in a concise way because you've described it over a very long period about how the education system would train you and how they'd start with a confliction at maybe A level with things like Cavendish and then move on to completely decry it and give you another level of bullshit. In other words, the kind of way you go through the education system leaves you with a self-made or self-serving method in your own brain to conflict with something that you've already been educated in. So what I'm trying to say is that at a base level, you were the same. You completely understood what the scientific method was, what it offered, and how it was empirical. But yet you also understood how lots of other things didn't have that. But we're still science, right? Kind of. But you understood it at both levels. So yeah, it's an interesting one when you're dealing with academics, but certainly not with people like Dr. Becky, because it's not like there's nothing she can hang her hat on that's scientific, literally nothing. So in order to accept first the premise that anything that they're asserting has no validity in science because it hasn't established a cause of an effect, she would rebel against that immediately. There would be no immediate, yeah, I understand that. However, there's certain realms of study, it wouldn't be any of that. There wouldn't be a concession. I just don't think you'd get even that far with someone like her, or any of the fields, astronomy, cosmology, astrophysics, any of them. They're all pseudosciences, so they're not going to have anything to hang their hat on, hence the housekeeping question, any valid hypothesis, because they don't have any. Cue Chocolate with the Michio Kaku quote. Probably dealing with something.
What happened? What did I miss?
I just said cue Chocolate saying with the Michio Kaku quote.
Nobody in our field or my field uses or knows scientific method. It's seat of the pants. It's guesswork. Leaps of logic. Michio Kaku.
That's the point. I think if you are honest, there's plenty of science that has most likely done in his past, but and got him into the position where he is. But he's honest enough now. It's a bit like the legal disclaimer. It's a model. He's telling the general public that that's fine. I am a scientist, but what we're doing now is not science. He's being totally honest with you. It's guesswork, it's conjecture, it's fantasy stuff, and that's again part of the system, isn't it? They have to tell you the truth of what they're.
Well, I got props from QE the other day. I think it might have been even on Bullbusters. So he explained that I'd made a point a few times that he hadn't quite twigged, and then he's like, "Now I get what you're saying." And it was in regards to Andrew Thomas Young. So he's saying the horizon as a physical entity, geometric considerations and all, is a thought experiment. And that, to me, is the disclaimer that would leave them in a position to essentially just turn their nose up at anybody that sneered and say, well, you don't understand philosophy. You don't understand how we've explained this conceptualization. We told you from the start it was a model. Now, your reification of that model isn't my problem. I understand that we're conceptualizing a physical horizon. I understand. What was the last example we were just talking about, Adam? I've forgotten already.
What with theoretical physics, you mean? In terms
yeah, exactly. It was probably dark matter and Michio Kaku, right? But yeah, all of these things are declared quite openly and boldly. It's not it's not.
I don't want to get kooky on it, Nate, but if you read in, Arwin will probably know a bit about this, but if you read into their satanic ways, I think it's within. I think it's called the Law of One. Their moral justification for being evil is it's part of a bigger paradigm, and they've been picked to play this role, which is how they justify it. But within all of their witchcraft and ways in which they lie and deceive to us, they're not allowed to not tell us the truth directly. The truth has to be there. And it's when you see these things like the Musa statements, all these that when you put them all together and you look at the coronavirus, all the things that outside of flat earth that truthers look at, there's always this constant theme that the truth is plainly put there, like it's a thought experiment. We're not dealing in science. These definitive statements of truth all seem to be there. And like I say, if you do look at it and believe in that side, it is a fundamental part of their religion that they do have to tell us how they're mugging us off.
It's like reverse psychology almost.
I don't know if I buy it. I mean, I'll let Arwin put his 2 penny worth in, but I was literally just about to decry all of that and poo-poo it. But go ahead, Armin.
Now there is a little bit to it, but it's also about like a legal system, also not just towards their religion. It's also that they can take a stance in the end once it really gets overturned, or some specific thing gets overturned. Then they can say, yeah, but look at what we actually said. We did say it was a thought experiment, so we were perfectly honest.
See, that I can get behind. I can't believe it. So, of the 2 people I thought I'd be agreeing with, it would be the other way around. Adam, the reason, the voice of reason, and not talking about Masons and Satanists. And yet Arwin's the one who I completely 100% back every word he's just said. Yeah, it's the get out of jail free card. It's the get out of jail free card. We told you all along it was a model. Don't you understand philosophy, globeheads? That's what they'd say to you if you actually wake up to the reality of the obvious and observable flat nature of the plane we live on, and you moaned about it for all those terrified fundies who are like, oh, the Masons will get me. It's the fundy globeheads that are saying it, not us. Well, not here anyway. But the point is, no, they're not going to come and get you. They'd laugh in your face if you went and said, you lied to me. If you had the arrogance, or you were so bold to do so, they would literally laugh at you and say, no, it's clearly spelled out for you as philosophy. You just didn't understand that.
I totally agree with that on that level in this world. The point I was making was, in their world, the way in which they justify the things that they do and the way in which they describe their magic to be able to work is they have to allow us, go as cattle, the free will. Now, if we don't have access to the truth, we don't have the free will, therefore their magic won't work. So it's not my belief, that's my reading of how that they justify what they do and what they also have to let out to us cattle so that we maintain free will.
Yeah, it's explained by the architect in the second Matrix movie. So it explains that there's been several iterations of the Matrix, and the first iterations with the perfect world were rejected. But the newest versions had, at a base level, even if it wasn't recognised at a conscious level, the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're saying we're not free?
Well, again,
no.
The conclusion
we're
to
free to believe we're free.
In reality, no. But I'm just going to give you the example in the way it's left at the end of the third Matrix is to allude to the idea. It does it in the second one as well, when Neo's capable of controlling some machines in the real world, which doesn't make any sense unless he's still in the Matrix. But they're implying that he's still in the Matrix. So even though at an unconscious level they've got this choice, and some people perceive that what they've done is made a conscious choice, the choice isn't really real either. Now, the way I would explain that in the real world would be to say that you appreciate that the nature of your existence, the philosophical idea of living on a spinning ball hurtling through a sky vacuum, is just an idea of the world, a way of looking at things. Once you appreciate that, are you in any way free of the shackles of society? Do you still have to put on your straw man coat to go and register your car? Yes, you do. So the illusion of choice and the understanding of the nature of your reality, other than waking you up to the liars that they are, which gives them less power, what does it actually change? You still have to function in society. So yes, you've got this choice. Now, I'm kind of alluding to the argument where people say, well, what difference does it make? Well, in the vein that I'm speaking, well, not a great deal. But if you look internally and go, well, what difference does it make to you as an individual? For me, personally, it changes the world from being a very boring, figured out place like in The Truman Show when he asks about being an explorer. The teacher pulls down a map and says, it's all been explored. It's already been figured out. There's nothing to do. Well, you go from that to, wow, we're in a world of possibility. We don't even know anything, really. Why is the sky blue? I have no idea. I can't give you an answer. What's the sun? I don't know. It's amazing. We're in a world of... It's like being 3 years old again. It's like all the wonder of my eldest child. I can see it with my own eyes again. It's wonderful. And you can start exploring these things. Also, all the people who gave you the bullshit explanation for why the sky was blue or what the sun was are immediately deemed liars. And you can ignore them. You cut them out of your life if you're sensible. if you understand what toxicity in people is and what parasites and psychopaths are, then you'd immediately recognise them for what they are and detach yourself from them quick, sharp, pronto, if you know what's good for you. Other people go back for a spoonful of bullshit. But my point is, it's generally an internal difference. The system you're living in doesn't change. The world hasn't unfolded. The world out my window is the same as it ever was. Now, at a base level, I appreciated, specifically when I was out doing a rep's job, travelling all over the world, I appreciated it was flat because it was obvious. I didn't appreciate it was flat in the forefront of my mind because I was told otherwise. So I questioned those things while I was making those journeys, but ultimately landed on the understanding that I had landed somewhere else on a sphere. Now that has been relinquished along with the liars that told it to me. Well, I say liars, in the vein of what we're talking about now. If you actually look into it, the reason we win our arguments is because they must declare the actual reality of their thought experiment when it comes to the horizon, or the bending of conceptual mediums when it comes to space. You know, you've got all of this stuff declared to you. The Michio Kaku quotes or the Musa quotes are all no different. They're making it plain. You know, you can think about gravity as being a force. At the really is level, it's not really anything. You know, it's the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time. But you can think of it as being a force if you want to. You can. You as an individual. But you're being told by a third party what you can think. So understand and appreciate what the control in this regard is and how it operates. You're being told how to think. What your world is a very important part of how you are and what you do and your outlook on the world. So if that's controlled, you're controlled. If it's not, then you're a much more free individual. Does it change the world and the society you live in? No, not really. If you want to be pessimistic about it, you could just focus on that and say, well, what does it change? I've still got to go to work tomorrow. Yeah, you can look at it that way if you want to. For me, it did change. I don't go to the same job I did when I was privy to this information. Everything did change for me personally. But that's me. I'm just one guy. You're your own person. It should affect you in whatever way you choose to let it affect you. Or, as we actually experience on this show, rebel against it with great fury to fight for your conceptualization as the world being a sphere. Well, I've said all along, more power to you. You want to believe the world's a sphere? That's all it is, a belief in a philosophical outlook. Go ahead.
So Nathan, so it's the same as if they claim an actual curve. It's always going to be an actual curve, even if they say there's refraction. Would it not?
Yeah, you're fighting for more and more ways of twisting the world that you actually experience into the conceptualization and reification of a heliocentric model. That's all we're seeing. Now, it's quite funny with the Black Swan argument that the relinquishment of the model is required to debate the subject. That's amusing because it's the essential death nail of the globe model at the trench level, which I love. You know, typically you can just fight against the rhetoric in the trenches, you know, Coriolis effect being an example of that. Just deny Coriolis in the trenches and you can get the perceived win. Well, this isn't the case with Black Swan. You can't come here and just deny geometry as your defence and hope no one notices that you're essentially denying the very physicality you're fighting for. That's not going to go unnoticed, unlike when it's confused and double-speaked around Earth spinning and having two reference frames and Earth not spinning with the reference frame of air that's not bonded but spinning. You know, everyone gets confused, and then fighting for not having a Coriolis effect can slip under the radar as though it's a win. Well, the converse is totally not, you know, the inverse or whatever. The same comparison isn't held true when you compare it to the Black Swan. To say we don't have a geometric horizon is to say we don't have a geometric horizon. You know, it's just beautiful, right? Anyway, I'll relinquish the mic as soon as I've shouted out Passoeto, who says, hope we can have guests on who are in the fence. I think you mean on the fence, but yeah, I do too. I've already geared myself up this week for having a fairly quiet week in terms of Globeheads. You know, they've really got nothing to offer. What they have offered has left the people who've offered it in an extremely embarrassing position by having to do what I've just described, which is relinquish their own model in rebuttal. Wonderful. But yeah, that will dry up. There's not going to be too many more morons that just go, yeah, refraction can fight this argument. Like, it's worked for the last 5 years until they get here. So yeah, we're going to have a quiet week until something that they can use as a countermeasure will come up that they can come in and talk about and hopefully distract away from the Black Swan.
Nathan.
Hello.
Can I say something?
Gushka, Marcus.
Hey, Nathan. Yeah. So I want to tell you something about the response I got from Danny Faulkner. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Go ahead. Danny Faulkner response.
Yeah, so I messaged him on Facebook and asked about the gas pressure without a container. It's quite a long response. Can I put it in Discord?
Yeah, go ahead. Were you intending to read it out, though, I hope?
Yeah, so if I can read it. So he says here that there is a pressure gradient in the atmosphere with the greatest pressure at the lowest elevations and the last pressure at the highest elevations. For instance, at sea level, the pressure is 1 atmosphere or 14.7 psi, but at 14,000 feet, the pressure is only 60% of an atmosphere. Most people don't know what a vacuum is. It isn't a region of zero pressure. A vacuum is a region with lower than atmospheric pressure. Hence, there is a vacuum at 14,000 with much greater pressure below, but there is no container. Between these two, can you explain how this is possible? That's his response.
Is that it? just a declaration that there is no container between the gas pressure and the sky vacuum. Just a declaration.
Sounded like a rehash, Nathan, of we've got a gas pressure gradient.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's literally the first thing he said.
Yeah, I was going to say it's
This is when I
absolutely.
point out to them they're separate systems.
And apparently a vacuum is not really a vacuum either. It is in zero pressure, but then he proceeded to declare that just lower than supposed atmospheric pressure is already a vacuum, which is not entirely true either. There's a specific stated, pressure level that the supposed outer space vacuum has.
Does he state 60%, Arwin, as a vacuum? He's saying 60% of an atmosphere, so about 10 psi is a vacuum because he's decided that this arbitrary pressure of 1 atmosphere, 14.7, is something that you define a vacuum by. It's less. If it's less than that, it's a vacuum. Well, that's not.
Yeah, I told you guys this a while ago when Zanuck was trying with his bullshit. They're going to try to redefine the word vacuum just to mean a pressure differential. So when we say any signs of a vacuum, they can say, oh, there's vacuums all over the place. Look, pressure differential.
But then are they not saying that it's not separate systems then?
It doesn't matter because
they don't care.
Our question is extremely carefully phrased. I'll just repeat the housekeeping question, so you'll hopefully all twig where these are non sequiturs. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container? Now, obviously, the question is in reference to the assertion that the sky is a vacuum. So any declarations that involve the fundamentalist religious assertion that the sky is a vacuum is the whole point of the question being posed. So in his instance, he points to it and says there is no container as his declaration. That's not an explanation. That's his fundamentalist religious assertion. That the whole point of the question is based around his religious belief that he's never verified in any way, shape or form. So that's the point of the question. It's not an explanation. Nevertheless, the point of the question requires a demonstration so that you can actually show that this, which would be in line with the second law of thermodynamics, can be violated. You know, entropy is a very real fact of life. It's a law of nature. And entropy would dictate that the gas would fill the space. That's what gas does. Now, his ham-handed declaration that you can have a gas pressure differential with his outright fundamentalist religious belief that there is no container is merely a rephrasing of the question to include his religious belief in a sky vacuum. It doesn't address the question. The question is, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Not, well, we've got a sky vacuum and there is no container. That doesn't answer the question. It just demonstrates that he's a fundamentalist religious zealot with a belief in a sky vacuum without a container.
That seems to be what is his premise. The sky is a vacuum, and therefore you cannot have a gas pressure differential within a closed system. Seems to be the fundamental of what he's saying. Now, I'd just refer him to what Zach Good Times for All did, where we actually generated a gas pressure differential in a very small container. Now, if we can do it in a gas cylinder by just fluctuating temperature at one end to the other, then my answer to him would, to the best of my knowledge as to how the question's worded, be, yes, it's perfectly possible to achieve a gas pressure differential in a container. But to achieve gas pressure, you do need a container.
So you need a container, full stop.
You just went right back to the Fundy response of, oh, we have a pressure gradient. Well, Dr. Danny Faulkner, how do we have this gas pressure in the first place?
Exactly. So gas pressure gradient is delta X, and we're asking for X. How do you have X without a container? The container being the antecedent for gas pressure. So you're measuring it in PSI, and your square inch value that you're going to get is of the container that it's going to press upon. Now, if it doesn't have a container, all it's going to do is expand to fill whatever volume is available for it to expand into. Now, if that volume is a claimed sky vacuum, the gas would expand into it. Or, as per the second law of thermodynamics, if the sky was a vacuum, the gas would fill the space. Yeah, useless response. We've already heard it. But thank you for reading it out.
Can I ask one more thing? Sorry.
Of course you can.
So basically, this is just an assertion from his religious belief, and then you're saying that this is not, he's not capable of demonstrating this. Is that right?
Yeah, well, the question he's addressing is how can you have gas pressure without a container? Well, he hasn't demonstrated it beyond his assertion that there is a sky vacuum and there isn't a container. There's no demonstration, and the claim, in its essence, his response, in essence, is a violation of natural law. Don't know. His assertion would imply that we have a vast space for the gas to fill, but it just isn't filling it. Well, that's a violation of entropy. Entropy would increase, the gas would fill the space. Based on his standards, he's got a violation of natural law as an explanation for his fundamentalist sky vacuum belief. So no, his assertion violates the second law of thermodynamics.
I got it. Thanks, man.
Anybody got
And
anything to
before he
add?
tries another silly response, remember this is the same guy that tried to post, what's his name? Hillbilly Blue Balls?
Hillbilly blue balls. Yeah.
Right. That was trying to prove gas
Yes,
pressure
without a
without a
container.
container
Without a container.
using two containers. I don't know how that works out in your brain, but pipe
You
is a
just don't
container,
understand,
buddy.
Jock.
No,
Hey,
I
Nathan.
understand. I get it.
Well, let me fill the audience in, because that was quite a comical little turn of events. So, Andrew Thomas Young's promoting his book, Falling Flat, and he does a radio interview and says that the flat earth people who have asserted that they cannot debunk flat earth, therefore are flat earthers, simply haven't done enough research. What they've actually done is just gone out and done a Google search, and then that isn't looking to him for the information, that's just doing a Google search, you pathetic flat earthers. I'm paraphrasing. Nevertheless, first question, Nathan Thompson goes up to him at the conference, at the Flat Earth conference, and says to him, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Stone cold silence. What he then proceeds to do is go on Google and give us the first result, which is a moron called Blue Marble Science, fondly referred to as the redneck retard. Now, he's declared that he's got a demonstration in his title of gas pressure without a container. No, he hasn't. He's just a moron. But that was what this guy, who's criticised flat earthers for doing a cursory Google search, that's what he came up with after his cursory Google search, which was just beautiful and ironic in every single mouthful. Oh, delicious.
Hey, Nathan. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you referenced Andrew Thomas Young when you meant Danny Faulkner, right?
I did. I knew I'd done it while I said it, and I meant to correct it then just forgot. I meant Danny Faulkner when I said Andrew Thomas Young. Minor correction.
Yeah, speaking of Danny Faulkner, he said that an airplane wing proves a vacuum. And he described it as the lower pressure on the top of the plane wing versus the lower. So he is not explaining what a vacuum is. He's just trying to say it's less pressure is a vacuum, which is nonsense.
It's
That's
Delta
funny
X.
because you know where I heard that from
It's Delta
for
X
him.
again. It's a
I
gas
heard
pressure
that here in the trenches.
I talked
So,
over all of that.
he-
Say that again, Chocolate.
I'm
I
sorry.
talked all over you. Go ahead, Chocolate.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was saying that before I heard Danny Faulkner say that, I heard that here in the trenches. Like right at the point when I said, look, they're trying to redefine what a vacuum is.
Yeah, you caused
Radio
some
check.
feedback. Yeah, you've just turned your mic way up and it's caused a load of feedback. We heard you the first time.
Radio check.
Yes, we can hear you.
What's up,
Thank
QE?
you.
Just
Got
very,
a
very loud.
question. Got a question.
Go ahead.
The question that is put out to them is, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Read Dr. Danny Faulkner's first sentence again, please.
For me?
Yes.
Right. He said there is a pressure gradient in the atmosphere.
Stop.
With the greatest. Okay.
There's a pressure gradient. This is a red herring fallacy because he's already starting with gas pressure gradients, isn't he? Right? He's starting with delta X. We're asking where you got X from. Can you have delta X without X?
No.
Thank you. And his appeal to vacuums, what vacuums are, is just a silly little countermeasure 2 steps removed from a train wreck.
Yeah, precisely. Very, very succinctly put, Quantum Eraser. So he's asking for delta X. In other words, when we ask how we could have gas pressure here on Earth if the sky was a vacuum, his response is to start by saying, we have gas pressure here on Earth, but if I put a plane wing through that gas pressure that we've got on Earth, assuming the sky is still a vacuum in my example, it's just like, no, we don't want to know about a plane wing going through the gas pressure that would all be vacating into the sky vacuum. That plane wing is just a red herring. We want to know how we would have gas pressure in the first place if we didn't have any containment. So it's a red herring. Delta X rather than X. X being gas pressure. Delta X being gas pressure gradients. And with that, I'll say, if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream, then this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Below the wing is above the wing? And he says, yes. I said, then that's not a vacuum. That's just a pressure differential. So they do a false equivalency. They say there's the same amount of stuff, but less pressure is a vacuum, but that's not what the skies is. There's supposed to be less stuff up there. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, but also one thing he doesn't understand. The airplane wing has a surface.
It'd be nice to get a...
What he also doesn't understand is that the air pressure had to be there for the airplane wing to cut through in the first place. Where the hell did that come from?
I mean,
what's wrong with these people?
Go on, Flatsoid.
Said it's magic.
Right. I was going to say, I find it difficult to conceptualize what 10 to the minus 17 Torah is in terms of how much stuff there is in a given amount of space. And it's hard to... I know it's vast, but like I say, I find it difficult to actually conceptualize that vast number in terms of how many little dots of stuff there are in it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, it's easy to understand. The higher you go up, the more space for the air to move around. So it's thinner.
I get all that, but I'm just saying, if I say 10 to the minus 17 torr is the claimed to be vacuum of the sky, and I say you take an area of roughly the equivalent of what they say the sphere is, how many particulates of gas or any matter at all will be in the area that's the equivalent to the size of the claimed heliocentric sphere Earth? Who can give me an answer for how many particulates will be in that amount of space in a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum? Go.
I have no idea because no one can demonstrate it.
But theoretically or otherwise mathematically speaking, can anybody say there'll be 2 oxygen
Should be none.
particles? Go on.
There should be none.
None in an area the size of the sphere Earth is claimed to be. There'd be none in 10 to the minus 17 torr. Is that what your answer was?
I know. Since every math, I think it was all their maths just comes up to this. It's probably 666. No.
No one's got any idea. That's my point. It's really hard to conceptualize how much actual stuff there'll be in a given amount of space when conceptualizing a given area of an ever-expanding vacuum. Even when you have a qualification in their philosophy of the solar system, when you go, okay, between me and Saturn, how much space is that? How much air is there in that space? Someone give me an answer. It's hard to qualify, right? Therefore, hard to conceptualize for me.
I think Rumpus would be able to calculate that. Something like that's typically down his lane to get it to an exact.
I wouldn't trust Rumpus if he told me the air pressure in his tires.
No, I'm not saying that
Huey,
to trust his ideas. I'm just saying he could probably calculate that.
I already did. I'm trying to find it.
Oh, right.
We can ask something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, regarding again going back to Danny Faulkner's response, I just would like, I think I just need to ask him that, or probably correct me if I'm wrong. He's already begging the question in the first statement. Is that right?
Not begging the question in the first statement. The first statement starts at delta x. So the question is regards to gas pressure in the first instance. And his answer is, starting with an assumption that we have gas pressure, I can create a gas pressure differential. So he's moved the argument from x to delta x, which doesn't explain how he has x in the first place. So the question, my response to him, if it was verbal, would be, look, Mr. Faulkner, no, we don't need to know about how we have a gas pressure differential when we're asking about gas pressure.
I got it.
So which comes first, gas pressure or your gas pressure differential created by a plane wing? Well, you've first got to have gas pressure to have the gas pressure differential in a plane wing. Well, the question is, how do we have gas pressure without a container? And the only bit that he addresses the container bit is when he says, we have no container. Well, that assertion is a violation of natural law. Entropy increase would occur, it's a natural law. And he's saying, no, we have no container, sky is a vacuum. He doesn't overtly state, no entropy increase will be applicable here. He doesn't overtly state that, but that is what he's stating. In essence, what he's stating is a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy increase would occur. You can't have gas pressure without a container. The entropy would increase. The gas would fill the space.
It's unbelievable
So did
that
you
a
have an answer?
PhD like Dr. Danny Faulkner would give us the same crap responses that we get from the morons we deal with here every day.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah. Yes, I do want the answer. What is the answer, please?
No, I was thinking that you had the answer. You were just waiting for somebody to give you the answer.
In terms of how much stuff there'd be in the equivalent volume of an Earth-shaped amount of 10 to the minus 17 torr space?
Yes.
No, I haven't got a vaguest clue. I started out by saying I find it difficult to conceptualize it.
Yeah, because you need the volume, right? What's the volume of the fairy tale?
Oh, no, Raskin, I don't know. What volume of what's the volume of Earth? Where's my Cavendish balls? Give me a minute.
No, what's the volume of the entire system you're talking about?
Oh, the entire vacuum?
Yeah.
Oh, it's got far too many zeros.
Within a cubic meter?
It's got like 32 zeros.
It's 3.58 times 10 to the 80th cubic meters.
That's a big number. Holy shit. That's a lot of vacuum.
So let's compare it. I didn't do it with that. I just did it. I made not an analogy, but I think it's a good a good measuring stick. So you got 10 to the negative 17th. So that's really saying you've got one part in the 100 quadrillions volume. So you have a sea level box. Let's do it this way. Sea level is 760 torr. That's really 760 over 1, right? So you got 760 parts in 1. 10 to the negative 17th, like I said, is 1 part in 100 quadrillion. So if you had 2 boxes, a sea level box and a vacuum of space box, each having 100 quadrillion cubic centimeters of volume, the sea level box would contain 7.6 sextillion particles compared to the vacuum of space box, which has 1 particle in the whole box.
That's a nice qualification. Okay, now I've got something to compare it with. 1 particle. Okay. Cool.
It's the concentration grade. The gradient it's damn near unimaginable. I would say it's past unimaginable, man.
That is insane. Yeah, that's insane.
Just your stuff on screen, Paul, while that was being talked about, just so you know. A statistical look at entropy.
Yeah, this is from Chemistry 3.0. I don't know if you saw that, but it talks about the different nature of microstates when the entropy. I guess you saw me trying to click through that. I'm obviously not going to play it because I don't want to get a copyright, but they first begin to talk about microstates and 1 gas particle, and then they move it up. They keep increasing the gas particles, different microstates, through the whole, and then talk about what the different microstates are. And then they just keep going. And then I thought this last part was really good because it talks about the fewer equivalent microstates when you got a barrier. But as soon as you remove the barrier, it wants to occupy as many microstates as possible, which the one on the left is low entropy and the one on the right is high entropy. So this is using gas. This has nothing to do with energy. They always, every time I ever look at entropy, they always seem to use gas as their model for it. Why is that? Can anybody explain, please?
It's the easiest to explain.
Because they would probably have the highest state of entropy rather than liquid and solid. It's already at a high state of entropy.
And the rate in which you get the change is quicker to a gas.
The microstates are directly proportional to the amount of volume available to it.
Right.
So for a gas, it's easy to get that mental picture.
So how many microstates would there be in the claim to be vacuum of the sky? It'd be quite a lot, wouldn't it? Possibilities for that gas that it's not expanding into in the heliocentric model for Phil. All those potential microstates, they're just available increase of entropy. It's just what would happen by natural law. Unless you're a fundy and you just say the sky is a vacuum and there is no container. That's what you do if you're an astronomer.
This is just showing all the cracks in their concept, though.
Say that again. One more time. Hold on. One more time, Flatsoid.
I say, so this is just showing all the cracks they have in their concept.
Yeah.
And if they use gravity, that means gravity has to lower entropy. It has to in the system. So, because if gas doesn't expand, it means it's being lowered, right?
I suppose, would you call that? It's just a cease in entropy, right? It's just a complete violation of the second law. It's not a decrease in entropy as such, is it?
Well, that's what I mean. That's what they have to say. If they start saying gravity keeps the gas from expanding, it has to lower the entropy, not increase it.
That's what we're convoluting the village idiot assertion of gravity holding gas pressure, which it doesn't. The two are completely devoid of explanation within each other, and they're not connected, and one isn't defying the other, and no. But so you're kind of describing microstates and then talking about gravity within that convention, and it just isn't. You know, that Anthony will know from past experience that when it gets described in that way by him, I'm like, no, gravity is not overcoming entropy. You're not going to find any maths to show that's the case, and it isn't the case, and you can easily demonstrate it. It's been demonstrated by Dr. John Dee. It just simply is not the case. Gravity was never overcoming entropy when it was a force 100 years ago either.
But you need to say the but there, Nathan.
But they say it does.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Fuck off.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I do it, because they say it does, even though it doesn't. And Nathan's right, it doesn't do it. They believe it does. So that's why I attack their belief.
I get it. I'm telling you to F off with a smile because, yeah, Philip Schofield was told that and nodded away. Like, yeah, gravity's holding the gas here while Mark Sargent explains how you pull a cork out and in the gas chamber that's been vacated of any gas, and you're sat below it, you pull your cork and all the gas goes up into the chamber above because gravity's not holding dick. It's not doing anything. So it's not going to hold the gas that's, due to vacate into the sky vacuum if it was one. It isn't, therefore it isn't. We haven't got a sky vacuum. But yeah, the village idiot level mentality is to say that gravity will defy bloody entropy. It's preposterous. But yes, it is assumed by a lot of idiots.
Worth pointing out, I know you guys don't pay too much attention to the chat, but Laurie Lato was in chat and he was basically bitching about how Refraction explains the oil platforms, and I'm trying to get him to come in and discuss it, and he obviously won't. He's not even listening to what's going on in the chat, in the Hangout. He's just trolling the chat. But these ballers still don't understand the problem they've got, or they do understand it and are overtly lying. One of them two statements is true, and Laurie's a good example of it. We need to get these fuckers in chat and just rip them apart. I know they're not going to come in, but they're in text chat, like trolling like fuck.
You and I have got very different attitudes, and I was smiling when I saw you in the chat battling with them, because what I've geared up for, Anthony, is a quiet week. So I've got my head on. I'm looking for things to talk about because I don't envisage them coming in this next week until something else crops up that they can use as a countermeasure. Yeah. The argument is going to be in chat. So I've had my fair bit of debating in Uncut and after shows and stuff with people. That's where I'm getting it from. That's where I'm getting my fix from. I know what you're looking for, and I'm telling you, you've already found it. It's in the chat. That's where they're arguing this crap.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Laurie's been toe tagged. He's a complete knucklehead.
When Nathan
do you even remember him?
Toe tagged him.
When Nathan finishes recording, I need to catch up with Chocolate and Quantum Eraser, so you two stay in the chat when he stops recording.
Oh, are you trying to kill my show? You're doing a Quantum Eraser on me?
No, I just want a private conversation that's not recorded with them two, that's all.
Yeah, just reiterate those words that will make everyone in the audience watching this when it plays back think that we're ending right now. Thanks. Maybe say it a fourth time.
No.
Thanks everyone for coming. It's been
Alwyn, shut up. Look, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
The show is not ending right now, but you can think that it's ending right now.
Oh my god. The more you say it, the more we'll have 3 horizons. I mean, the more people will think it's ending.
Which is exactly what happens with gravity. The more we talk about gravity, the more it becomes real.
It was in its future, okay?
Did you see? Yes. I posted a link in the chat. I caught it late, but it is the funniest train wreck of full pants on the head retards talking about gravity for 3 hours, man. I'm going to evaluate it probably sometime today because There is a lot of sound bites in there I'm going to have to use. Just want to let you know.
What are you talking about?
Who are the
3
three
hours of baller talk about gravity? Really?
Sounds awful. Who are the Three Stooges?
Mo, Larry, and Curly.
What?
Yeah, in your 3 hours. Come on, let's have some specificity.
Oh, I ain't talking about Stooges, man. It was Jose Retard last night. It popped up on my recommended, so I hit it, but it was really late, right? So I wanted to go to bed, so I just flicked through it. What I didn't flick through, if it's any indication of what I did flick through, oh my word. I was rolling.
I remember that. I think I was in chat for a few minutes there. And then I went away because it was just so out of control. Yeah.
That's I sent it to Anthony, basically, because it's about gravity.
Okay. Give us some broad strokes. Give us some vague ideas of what was amusing. Just fill us in.
I think one, obviously Rumpus is going to be in there. I think one was, he said that, what's the problem? I mean, we have 2 definitions for one term. We're going to have 2 different answers. He kept saying that. I'm sitting there.
That's an equivocation fallacy. That's great.
The textbook definition of an equivocation fallacy.
I love it. I love it when they do that. They define the fallacy and justify it. Well, it's my logical fallacy, this is. I'll say it over and over again. We've got two different definitions for the same thing. This is an equivocation fallacy. What's your problem?
Did they also end up saying that the entire Einsteinian gravity was a straw man too? Just going their own discovery journey based on Newton, even though he didn't claim a hypothesis.
Oh man, they're smoking some serious.
Better than nothing.
Just trench talk. This is trench warfare, and it's getting pathetic.
I just want to show you guys something I watched Apollo 13 the other day with Tom Hanks in it. And if you haven't seen it recently, it's worth watching again from the different perspective that we live in now, which is the FE discussion. And there's 2 key points in it that are really pertinent. One is he's describing the construct of the module thing that he's in whilst he's going around it, going around the moon, slingshotting around the moon to get back to Earth. And he describes it as being as thin as tin foil. And he explains that it's only that thin because it was only designed for one purpose, and that was traveling through space. And I think he's implying that it doesn't need any protection because he's not going to crash into any other cars or whatever. I'm not quite sure what he's referencing, but the point is that he says that the reason why it's so thin is because it's only designed to do one task, which is travel through space. But then later in the movie, he's dreaming. He's in bed and he's dreaming about risks of, the apprehension of going to space and whatever. And one of his nightmares is that the seal bursts on the door, the docking door, and the door fucks off into space whilst he's on the inside of it. And obviously he gets blown from the inside outside into space and then lost in space. And it's really pertinent because it shows it's almost like they're laughing at us in one sense, because they say on the one hand that it's thin as tin foil because it's the only job they've got to do. And then he bursts into space because the pressure inside pushes him through the thing. And apparently they're only at 4 psi in that thing, apparently. And just 4 psi next to 1 psi, which is 0 psi, it's not a negative vacuum, it's just a low pressure. That differential of just 4 psi is enough to burst him into the vacuum of space. And it's just really pertinent to watch the first half hour of Apollo 13 and just look at it from flat Earth perspective. It's really, really good.
I've got your comparison, Nath.
Before you do, I just want to tell what's on screen. You can't see it, but I'll tell the audience. So I'll do the plug. Hold that thought, Adam. So what I've got on screen for the audience's benefit right now is Dilly Gill. Now, he is, in terms of subject matter experts on NASA fakery, head and shoulders above everyone else. And I don't care if I cause offence to anybody else who is focused on this particular subject matter. He's got very specific, very detailed, very focused on a narrow subject. He's kept his studies really specific. He's doing freedom of information requests to NASA specifically and making his declarations about what is and isn't available in terms of footage based on those freedom of information requests that he also publishes. Now, he's gone to the effort of redoing his what I think he originally called the shuttle is a zero-G plane. And he's gone to the effort of actually remaking them now. He's a bit better at editing and it's got a bit more information under his belt. So he's put those videos out. If you're watching this on Nathan Oakley channel, I will put a link to his channel. Make sure you subscribe to him. Of all the people out there doing this, he's doing the most thorough job. Like I say, I don't care if that causes offence to people who think, no, I do a better job. I don't care if you think that. I've seen a lot of people doing NASA debunkings and studying their footage and things of similar nature. I couldn't praise Dilly Gill high enough. I've watched all of his videos at least once, probably twice. This one's no exception. It came out this morning. I watched it twice immediately. Just a fantastic guy. I've left him a message. Hopefully I'll get to interview him. I will share a link to his channel, but that's Dilly Gill. So check him out. He is absolutely fantastic as far as I'm concerned. That's it. Sorry, Adam.
No. I've been hunting. So you were talking about getting a comparison in your head. So I've just done a quick search, and first thing I could see was the infiniteness of the vacuum of space, or the claim. And again, it's not a comparison, but the only thing I could see it was saying one hydrogen atom in 1 meter cubed, which didn't help. But I've done a little bit of researching in some technical books, and it's talking about processing. So it's talking about a very ultra high vacuum. Now this is 10 to the minus 12 torr, Nathan. Now space is claimed to be 10 to the 17 minus 17.
Yeah.
So it's obviously a lot weaker by a magnitude of 5. But this is the comparison I've got for you. So comparing it to a standard vacuum that we think in a normal vacuum chamber, and then comparing it to just standard gas pressure. So standard gas pressure gives you 2.69 times 10 to the power of 19 molecules in a cubic centimeter, not a cubic meter. So 2 with 19 zeros after it. That's how many in just standard standard air. If we go to a 10 to the minus 3 torr equivalent, there's about 10 to the 13 molecules. So a magnitude of 6 less. If we then get the best quote we've got, so compared to the 2 with 19 zeros in standard air, at just 10 to the minus 12 torr, that's 10 to the power of 4. So what's that? 100,000 molecules in a cubic centimeter. So if you can compare putting those two systems next to each other, it's more significant than putting a lump of gold on top of jelly. The difference, it's just absolutely monstrous. It's to the power, even on that one, it's to the power of 15 molecules. You know what I mean? A magnitude to that scale is just.
Let me just.
Does that help?
Yeah. So what you're saying is, given the quantification that you'd have there with 10 to the minus 12, did you say?
A 10 to the minus 12 torr gives you 100,000 molecules in a cubic centimeter.
Right. So if you were comparing a cubic centimeter at 10 to the minus 12 torr and comparing that to the claimed to be sky vacuum at 10 to the minus 17 torr, so you've got 5 orders of magnitude more vacuum, or less pressure, I should say. Obviously, those 100,000, sorry, I'm keeping track of the numbers, did you say?
Yeah.
Would obviously want to vacate into, by way of entropy increase, into the 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum. Correct?
Yeah, so there's 100,000 at this. Let's just say we've got this transition between space vacuum and the 10 to the 12 minus 4. In 1 centimeter cube, there's 100,000 of the little molecules, right? But next to it, there's a whole meter cubed, and in that, there's only one molecule.
Right.
Where are they going to go?
Yeah, they're going to fill the space. All those microstates available. Right, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That does help me conceptualize it a lot. Thank you. And QE, for that matter. Both very helpful. Which ultimately means it's helpful to the people listening.
Hey, make sure you check your Skype messages, sir.
Okie dokie.
Say again?
Said okie dokie. Oh, there's loads of stuff.
I didn't see your icon pop underneath. Oh, I did now.
Okay, there's all sorts of stuff. I'll have to have a look at it later after Spanish.
Yeah, Spanish. Vámonos, muchachos.
Later.
Andale.
Adios.
Buenos dias.
Anyway. Did you see Red Pill discussing modus tollens with Mitchell from Australia?
I have not.
It's cool. I've talked about it in the pre-show. I've talked about it in the live show. And I'm going to talk about it now. So it's just heartwarming seeing people in the comment sections and the live chats that you can distinguish pretty quickly, albeit with the subtle hints, that they get the argument by how they hold the opponent's task in the chat. And I've been seeing it all weekend, and I'm like, how can I talk about it? So that's why I'm talking about it 3 times. I've already geared myself up to talk about it, and then just by pure coincidence, Mitchell from Australia and Red Pill Philosophy discuss it. I'm like, this is perfect, because they're discussing how they utilise the argument, what the implications are. In other words, it's 2 dudes, really relaxed, just they both get the argument, and they're just talking about it in the most relaxed manner possible. And you're like, yeah, this echoes exactly my sentiments about the whole red pill, the whole black swan thing at the moment, which is to say the people who get it are really, they sort of breathe out and relax, and they're just kind of, yeah, man, this is good, this. You know, I can just whoop them around with it, it's great. And they're not, not at all fretting about it or stressed about the opponent suddenly coming up with a response to it. They know implicitly that there's going to be no response. So that obviously makes you breathe out and relax a little bit. And it's evident, even in the chat, you can tell those people that just like using it. It's a big stick, right? And they're using it. The people who don't get it. And it's just such a shame. So I'm hoping that people will hear Mitchell and Red Pill chatting about it and going, their attitude seems slightly different. I wonder why that is. And maybe they'll look into the modus tollens argument, which they did discuss. They were quite clear about the argument as well. Mitchell from Australia is very good with it. He understands it to the point where he can just parrot off the modus tollens argument, the black swan analogy, the actual argument itself, and he understands what the evidence that assists it is. So, he's got every angle covered. So him discussing it with Red Pill, who's kind of, he's been fairly open about, look, I kind of get this. And, Anthony, I know you had a chat with him, and now he's chatting to other people about it. And it's like great because he's out there spearheading it basically. And if he's coming from
not only spearheading, he's actually listening. Now, it's a lot better when our side spearhead when they've listened to the argument rather than spearheading and not listen to the argument, which is what some of our side are doing. And we all know who they are. So it's like the fact that he's listening is the point that it's just glorious to appreciate.
Yeah, it is.
You have a link?
Do I have links?
Yeah, do you have a link to that, what you were
evidence
talking
on the
about?
show.
I re-released it actually, so it was originally from a podcast anyway.
Okay.
So it's Paul on the Plains podcast.
Don't worry about it.
Let me just tell you so it gets to the audience as well. So it was originally Paul on the Plains podcast, and then Mitchell from Australia's trimmed it out and put some nice visuals to it. I've then trimmed that out and given a plug to my channel reaching 17,000 subscribers and various other things, along with playing out the interview. So there is a version of it on my channel. Obviously, I want people to go to the original videographer, so I've linked all of the original videographers underneath in the comments.
So you put it out earlier today?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get it.
Guys, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What do you think of Mad Mike's tragedy? Do you think it will be do better on a flatter community?
I think it was an inevitability, and no matter when it happened, it was going to be a tragic loss. Nobody wants to see anybody else die. However, Mad Mike's death in his steam-powered rocket ship was an inevitability. You know, someone like Evel Knievel, the fact that he survived as long as he did is an absolute miracle. But generally speaking, you know, his micromort count was pretty high.
Evel
But do you think?
Evel Knievel
Do you think
caused
more?
me.
Sorry, what was that about?
Evel Knievel me so many injuries, I can't even count them.
Well, he did a very similar thing. You know, he jumped over the Grand Canyon in essentially the same kind of contraption that Mad Mike died in.
Do you think more people will now look into flat Earth because of that tragedy?
No, but it will. But it did pop up in a lot of headlines. RT.
I was going to say, it did pop up
all
in a lot
that.
of headlines. I did do a fair few searches to see what impact it had made. And yes, it certainly has, it seems, made an impact of sorts. And I've certainly seen people who aren't flat earthers talking about him and mentioning the fact that he believed the earth was flat. That was an aspect of his study. And you can tell they're outsiders to the subject when they're reporting on it. So by what I've seen, I know it has made an impact in that regard. Has he become a martyr for flat earth? No, I wouldn't have said so. Still, more importantly, it's just tragic, innit? You know, it beggars belief that he would do anything like that in the first place. You know, it wasn't called Mad Mike he was called Mad Mike for a reason. You know, what he was doing was pretty mad.
Yep. You could almost argue it's a miracle he managed to keep it up so many times without it going wrong also. But yeah, that all depends on how careful he really was with his contraptions and all. I don't really know the details, but yeah, this kind of stuff eventually, that's how real daredevils usually end up, just like Evel Knievel.
Like I say, I see it as an inevitability. It doesn't matter how careful you can be with a steam-powered tin can that you're sending up into the sky. It's you know, it's not going to end well, and it didn't, which is tragic. Rest in peace, Mad Mike Hughes.
And on that note,
No, I don't mind leaving it recording for a moment of reflection.
Yeah, just a moment of silence.
I've heard a few people suggesting that it might not actually be real. It's a convenient excuse to like kill him off in terms of not actually killing him off, but making it look like he's dead.
He's not Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Well,
like the Hollywood Vacation.
Let's see how true it is.
My
Let's see how true it
word,
is.
man.
I don't think so. I don't think he even has the resources for such a thing. You know how expensive that it gets. You got to be entangled with. I don't think so.
Honest,
and heard also, I don't know if they're reliable, but testimony that many people did actually get video shots of him getting in the thing and all that. So
yeah, that's the kind of evidence we need to really see, because it's being questioned. Put it that way, not necessarily by me, by many others.
Just let him question it. The guy's dead. Leave him be. That's my attitude. And with that, I will say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who did tune in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Of course, another massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G+ panels for making this after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!